phone just like literally sliding down. That was quite funny. Welcome back to another stream, everybody. It's been a little bit of a while since I did the last stream, and I've got something quite exciting that I want to talk about in today's stream. A little unplanned idea that kind of like got real really quickly, and I'm quite excited to share this one with you. So I want to share with you all my new venture called In the Beer Garden, the future of music in Driffield. Now, this is an idea that is still very much in the planning stages, but it's an idea that is like 100% confirmed to happen, and I'm really excited about it. So we've got to sort of fast forward just a tad little bit and go back in time a little bit earlier this year, where I got the opportunity to kind of become like a little bit of a resident in the Book in Driffield, which the Book in Driffield is an absolutely amazing pub, and Tracy, who is the owner of the pub, I cannot thank her enough because she's given me countless opportunities. And when I was kind of in a little bit of a stage in my life where I'd had a lot of family things going on, a lot of gigs had kind of like died down for me, and I wasn't really going out to a lot of different clubs and raves, and I'm still not really doing a lot of that now. She kind of like gave me that opportunity, gave me a platform to go somewhere every week and showcase what I can do and play music and entertain people, which has been kind of like really good. Now, when I got this like opportunity, of course, I was absolutely buzzed for it. But I always like to try and think of like how I can like come in and make a difference, do something better. So I wanted to come into this kind of like residency, like with the idea of like, listen, I don't just want to turn up and play music. I want to kind of like put some ideas forward as well as to like how we can kind of like make the music like an enjoyable experience, and how we can kind of like, you know, utilize what we're doing, you know, with when it comes to things like bank holiday weekends. You know, let's kind of like, you know, put some themed nights on and stuff. And that was kind of like the whole sort of like situation of kind of where I sort of like where my headspace was at with the whole thing, that I didn't just want to like go in there and play music. I wanted to kind of be like, right, it's the bank holiday Easter coming up, let's kind of plan what we're going to do for the bank holiday weekend, and you know, let's kind of get it all sort of like, you know, have some really like good things planned for what we can do to obviously like, you know, entertain people over that weekend. So that's kind of like where it all sort of started. And then we fast forward to so sorry, I think I said fast forward earlier when I should have said rewind. So now we fast forward to this last weekend just gone. Now, this last weekend just gone, I was over at the Book again. I was very much doing the music. And the weather outside is starting to get a little bit better now. We're getting some like sunny days. We're getting some quite warm days. Even a couple of days where I've like gone to work without even wearing a coat. So I really got thinking about summer, and like just like how sick summer is going to be. And you know, if I'm still DJing at the Book and stuff, like just like how sick it would be. Usually like sometimes like I get to the Book and I've set up, and it doesn't take me that long to set up because I kind of to an extent know what I'm doing. I know where the wires are going. So usually I get set up, and usually like I just sometimes like head outside and just get a bit of air before I, you know, start doing music, and have a drink, and sometimes take a drink outside and stuff like that, as you do. And I went outside, and I was just looking at like the outdoor beer garden and just thinking like, it would be like really, really cool if we could like do something like outside of here, and we could just like, you know, get some music outside and maybe do something outside here when the music gets a bit better. When the weather gets a bit better, sorry. Now, the beer garden itself is not massive, but there is like a really nice sort of like overhanged little sort of like area where it would have like literally been like the perfect space to put some decks in and, you know, have like set up a little sound system and stuff like that. So anyway, cutting the long story short, I had this idea and I pitched it to the other DJ that DJs at the Book. And I just said, look, you know, I've just been outside. I'm just like, we should really do something outside because like that would be like an actual like sick thing to do. So anyway, I pitched the idea to him, and instantly he was like, we should do it over the road at the pub across the road. It's ran by the same owner, so like the owner like literally owns both pubs. And the beer garden is a lot more bigger. It's, you know, it's set up with like the idea that like, you know, you could do stuff in there. So it really got me thinking, and I thought like that would be like really, really cool, but like what are we going to offer in there? Like with it being quite a bit bigger, like I just thought like if we're going to do something in there, it would be like really cool to like take it up a notch and not just like do kind of what we do inside the Book, but kind of do it outside. So I just kind of thought, how can we make this like a little bit sort of like on a bigger scale, without being too massive, because like I'm no like massive promoter kind of person, but like I would, you know, like I really got thinking about it. And then sort of like over Sunday and over Monday, Sunday the idea, I wouldn't say like I overly thought about it, but the idea never really left my mind. And I was kind of like thinking about like what could we actually do here. And then Monday is where I really started to think about what could we do, like what could this actually be. And I really started getting on my mind, and the other DJ was in my inbox again, and he was like, yeah, we should definitely do something out there. And I just got this like really, really sort of like I just could not forget about the idea. So I started thinking about possibilities of like what would be like really cool that we could do out there. And then I thought, well, why don't we have like a daytime into nighttime event sort of somewhere sort of like in the late August, sort of mid to late August essentially, where the sun is going to be hopefully like quite nice weather. You know, but you are heading into like the September, October, so it's not going to be absolutely scorching, but at the same time you're still going to get some nice warm days, providing it's obviously not raining. So anyway, with that being said, I started cooking up a bit of a plan and thinking about this a little bit more, and I thought, you know, let's do this kind of like day into night event where we could start off in the afternoon with like a little bit of live music. So get some like singers, get some bands, you know, do a little bit of some like acoustic singing, and then like a band takes over, and then sort of move into us doing the DJing sort of until, you know, it's obviously too late that, you know, we can't go and play music outside anymore, like it's got too late kind of thing. So with that being said, I started cooking up this idea, and the idea really quickly started coming together. So I texted a couple of cousins and family members, and I was just like, look, I've got this little idea. I'm thinking about doing something outdoors. And I just wanted to get like some general thoughts of like what people thought about it. Wrote this little plan together, and just sent it to like a couple of cousins, and just said like, look, what do you think of this idea? Do you think like this would be like something quite cool to do? You know, and obviously like they got back in touch, and they were like, I think this is a really good idea. So it played on my mind and played on my mind. And then on Tuesday morning, which was yesterday, well, it was actually the day before now because we've gone past midnight. But Tuesday morning, I was really nervous. I was proper like, this is actually quite a big jump from like just, going in the pub and kind of like playing music to kind of like saying, well, hey, look, I want to kind of put like almost like a small festival on, to be honest, like, bit of a day of music type thing. So anyway, with that being said, I jumped the bullet, I bit my tongue, and I messaged the owner of the two pubs and just explained, look, I've got this idea, that I would like to do something sort of in the height of summer, when the weather's really nice and we're all doing things outdoors, and with the idea of that it would give like some up and coming musicians like a performance opportunity. I thought, when I sort of thought about the idea, I thought like, why don't I incorporate kind of a little bit of what I do with the Hull Youth Music Network, and sort of take a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of like the way I kind of do things with that, and bring it into kind of like doing this. So like the Hull Youth Music Network is, again, like it's about giving people performance opportunities. So I kind of thought, why don't I kind of do a little bit of a similar thing, almost like the Driffield Music Network in a way, but not as such, because we're not kind of like we're not kind of somebody that's like securing funding. We're not running workshops and sessions and hitting youth centres in Driffield. It was more kind of like the idea of like, are you just like an up and coming musician, like a singer, maybe you're a rapper, maybe you're like an acoustic guitar singer, or maybe, for example, you're like a small band and you're sort of like trying to get more gigs, or you've not gigged before and you want the opportunity to do a gig, essentially. So I started sort of like putting that into the plan as like, well, this would kind of be the offer, to kind of like put this sort of like free entry outdoor thing on, showcase like some up and coming talent, that don't really get the chance to pardon that don't really get the chance to gig, or they've not really gigged much before, to give them like a little bit of an opportunity, where they can sort of like have their parents come along, or they can have their mates come along, and watch them perform. And the idea is that we kind of tackle sort of like teenagers into sort of like acts that are sort of in their like 20s. So like, obviously it's a pub, people underage are like typically not allowed in pubs, like to buy alcohol, etc. But on the like chance of like we're having an outdoor event that takes place in the afternoon, like a young person like 16 sort of 15, 16, they can be in an outdoor beer garden during the afternoon for like a small sort of like outdoor event, if you like. So that was kind of like the idea and sort of like the bargain of like what I wanted this to be. Then the next thing I had to kind of think about was, first off, like, was the venue going to say yes? Were they going to say like, this is a really good idea? Second of all, like, how do I even get power out there? Is there any form of like having any form of power out there, and if so, like, how easy and accessible is it? And they were kind of like the two main things that were kind of in a way like the kind of like the make or break of whether this like idea could go ahead or not. Obviously the main one being like, is Tracy gonna say yes? And luckily for me, when I sent her a text message, she was very, very keen on the idea, which is like really, really good for me. Because that kind of meant that, this is something that, she's very, very keen about. And then basically, she confirmed that there was power outside because they have like a big TV out there, and in the summer they screen sports matches. So with that being said, that kind of like ticked two boxes that I really needed ticking, to be honest with you. They really needed ticking for me to sort of ensure that, like, look, this could go ahead. So that got all confirmed, which I'm over the moon about. The next thing that was kind of on my mind is, like, how are we actually physically going to do this in terms of like the stage, in terms of like the sort of like, what we're going to do for like the sound system and stuff like that. And I've been really, really like doing my research into this because, like, I didn't want to get anything wrong, and I wanted to make sure that, like, everything like was doable before, like, I could even like click the kind of like go ahead button. So I wanted to make sure, like, that it would be easy accessible, like, to get a sound system, what type of sound system is going to work best for kind of like what I needed for this, while trying to do everything on like the cheapest budget as possible. And I kind of like did research online and sort of confirmed that you can hire like a good PA system for a day, and they're not really that expensive to hire. They're not as expensive depending what you're after, and I suppose like different companies will vary. But with the research I did, like, hiring sound systems, like, they're not really necessarily gonna sort of like be too, it might be around like 50 to 100 quid for the day, which for me, I'm pretty happy to do. That is a music to my ears, really. I did also look down the route of, like, look, what if I was actually to buy a sound system, just because I do need to upgrade my speakers as well. And basically, that is something that, like, I thought, like, if I do buy it, if I do buy a system, then, like, I have got the system for myself, and it's like, I can use it for other things as well, which was a good thing to bear in mind. However, like, the price of buying a system is a lot more expensive than it actually just costs to hire one. Now, the sort of like thing with the system at the moment is the other DJ who is like doing the DJing at the pub with me, he is investing in some equipment because he actually wants to do this like music thing a little bit more, and actually like have his own equipment and stuff like that. So he's actually looking into buying like a PA system. Now, what I think we're going to do is we're going to actually do some music outside in that beer garden prior to the event, and we're just going to get like a simple setup out there, get some like a laptop to play some music, get my decks in there so I can do some DJing and just kind of test it out, see what it sounds like, see kind of like what we'll need, like with like the whole idea of obviously like using a sound system. We just essentially need like a sound system that we can plug a guitar into. We need a sound system basically that we'll just like take microphones, we'll just take a small guitar, and we'll just essentially run like laptop and decks. So like we can plug a lead in and it'll play like audio from the laptop. We plug the decks in, it'll play audio from the decks. We plug a guitar lead into like a mic mixer, or like a mixer, and then like we can control like a mic, like a level for like an acoustic guitar essentially, and then get some mics and some mic stands, and that's kind of pretty much like the whole sort of vibe of it. So we're going to test out, like, if he gets a sound system, what is it actually going to be like? And then we need like some form of, we need a biggish mixer, essentially. And then if that is kind of like, doable, like if his system sounds good enough and I think it'll actually work for what we need, bearing in mind I do also have two PA speakers that they're not the best, but they would work in terms of like we could use them as a monitor speaker, and that would probably like be absolutely fine to do that. Use it as a monitor speaker and stuff like that. So we could essentially be covered without having to hire a system. But because I want this actual physical main event to go well, if I feel that we need to hire a system, then I will inquire about hiring a system. The next situation that I wanted to kind of like think about and kind of like tick off before I kind of hit the like go ahead button was what we were going to do in terms of the stage. Now, hiring stages, they do, this is where like your costs can sort of ramp up. However, can use the option of like just having a gazebo and having like some music on sort of like a ground level without sort of being on a raised stage. And because we're going to be on like a patioed kind of beer garden where there isn't necessarily really going to be much in the way of grass, essentially like there is the opportunity that we could just set up a gazebo, and we could just put music in the gazebo. Like we could just turn the gazebo into a little bit of a DJ booth, sort of stroke a stage. And I've seen this kind of happen before. It does work. It works very well to an extent that, you know, you can just like set a gazebo up like on a ground level, and someone can just kind of like stand at the entranceway of the gazebo and like literally just play some music, and then you can just have like all the music equipment stored sort of in the gazebo, and you can put some like banners and stuff around it to sort of decorate it. Doesn't look as nice as having a stage, but for doing something on kind of like a bit of a cheaper budget, they work really well. And you can actually pick up gazebo tents quite cheap online, like, and they vary depending like what you're really after. The cheaper ones you get, the lighter they're going to be, the more you're going to have to like invest in like weighing them down. But essentially, like, they recommend that you can get a good gazebo tent for what we need from around like £80 to like £150. Now that budget is music to my ears. You know, if I can get one for under £100, I will be happy. If I have to get one that is like slightly over £100, then I will do so. Like, I will very much do so. And I'm gonna buy a gazebo myself, just because, like, again, like, you've got it, you can use it. So I kind of ticked them off, and that kind of got me in the like, right, we're doing this. I definitely want to do this. So I thought about kind of like what is the kind of like vibe of this gonna be. So in terms of like, what are we even gonna like name the event? What's it gonna be called? What's the branding kind of gonna be like? And I kind of thought to go with like kind of like just the most like simple, cheesy sort of name that you could really go for, and I just wanted to call it In the Beer Garden, just because simply like all it is we're in the beer garden. We're not kind of claiming to be a massive festival on a showground. We're not, you know, claiming to be a massive festival with like a big arena that fits like thousands of people in it. We are simply just in a beer garden with a small stage, offering some local music to the residents of Driffield, while giving some performance opportunities to like upcoming artists in the area that want to get out there more and do some gigs and showcase their music. And that is essentially what it is. So I thought, let's not give it some like big name that it's not. Like, I could have gone and called it like Drift Fest and stuff like that, but it's not really a big Driffield festival as such. It's something, of course, like with the potential that it could grow. But at the moment, it is like literally just what it says on the tin. It's in the beer garden. It's just some music in the beer garden. But I wanted to, at the same time, I still wanted to give it a festival feel. You know, I wanted it very much to feel like this is a proper thing where we go all out with proper promotion. We print flyers. We have a Facebook page called In the Beer Garden. We have a proper promotion sort of, plan of like how we're going to promote this event, have it as a proper, so it is like a proper event. It's just not a I didn't want to advertise it to make people think it's like this like massive festival, but at the same time, like, I do want people to kind of view it as like a small mini sort of outdoor festival in a beer garden, like a miniature outdoor festival where there's just one sort of like little stage area. There's a few acts on throughout the day with some DJs going on in the evening, and just something that'll bring people out, hopefully. So I got all the answers I needed, essentially. And then I was like all raring to go with the idea. And I got a little bit too big for me boots. Just ever so slightly too big for me boots. And I got a little bit excited and started like planning some things that they weren't bad plans and they weren't necessarily bad ideas, but then I had a chat with somebody who has put like small events and festivals on before, and although he didn't rule my event out to be an absolutely terrible idea, like he said, it's an amazing idea, and it's a really cool thing to do. At the same time, he did hit me with a few home truths, and the home truths at first, they were a little bit upsetting. That like right in that first moment, I was a little bit like, because I got really excited about this, and I think what had happened is I got overexcited and I saw the bigger picture before like we were at the level of the bigger picture, if that makes sense. So he had a little chat with me, and he just explained like a little bit about like what goes into putting these events on, where I was kind of not necessarily going wrong, but where like I was maybe like trying to do something like too early, that like for the level that I'm at with this like whole thing wasn't really like necessary. So obviously like my idea was to have some acoustic acts on, to have some bands on, and unfortunately after listening to his advice, I've taken the decision to not have a band on, which is a little bit gutting, but it doesn't end the event. It doesn't make the event the end of the world. It doesn't mean that we can't have a band on in the future. But what he pointed out is bands and stuff like that, they're a little bit more like awkward in terms of like setting them up. So like the instruments have to be mic'd up, the bands have to be like sound checked a lot more than like just a pair of DJ decks or one acoustic guitar, for example. And as much as like I am quite musically technical, and I can be quite technical when it comes to music, I am basically like cutting the long story short, basically like I'm no sound technician that can like sound check a band, and then you run into the territory of like hiring a sound guy, which like adds on an extra cost. Now, although I've saved a lot of money in other areas, like unless I really knew like a friend of a friend or a friend that like was a sound guy and would maybe like come and help me out on like a really cheap budget, it would kind of like put things into like more perspective, and also like it would kind of change sort of like things in terms of the gazebo. So like I'd maybe need something a bit more bigger for the fact that look, we're going to be not just having like decks in there, but there's going to be a drum kit as well. There's going to be all the hi-hats and the cymbals and stuff like that. So at first I was a little bit like, ooh, and at first it was quite brutal. I'm not going to lie, and he was like, why don't you just knock it down and do like a IB for sort of like IB for summer party sort of thing. And I thought it's a good idea, but it kind of like really changes what my original idea was. So I kind of sat there and I thought about his idea, and I thought, well, we can definitely get rid of the band. That is something that, unfortunately, like we could like definitely get rid of the band without kind of like I hadn't like got a band in mind that was going to play as such. There was like one person that had got in touch and they sent me a band I was sort of interested in, but like there was no confirmed yes, so I hadn't like confirmed a band or anything. So I thought, all right, we can kind of lose the idea of having a band. But then I just thought, like, I'm pretty certain that like I can get the level of like somebody playing an acoustic guitar. I'm pretty good at that sort of level of sort of like sound checking. I am quite good at that level of kind of like getting a microphone level to sound nice and crisp. And I thought like this isn't going to be absolutely massive. So the sound doesn't need to be absolutely amazing. And I think like, for the vibe and the space that we're in, like just sound checking an acoustic guitar, I don't think it'll be too much of an issue for me at all. I'm sort of very confident that they plug the guitar lead into the mixer, and then like I just sort of increase the volume of the channel that the guitar's coming through, so it sounds nice and crisp to like people in the audience, and then hopefully it sounds nice and crisp to people that are obviously not in the audience, obviously, like, so there's a bit of a monitor for the acoustic guitar player, that they can kind of hear their guitar, as obviously like the main speakers will go out to the crowd, and then like we have some form of like monitor speaker that will obviously like go into will obviously go into the gazebo itself, and it'll maybe like just lay up on the floor or something, and it'll kind of face upwards on a little bit of a diagonal angle. So that was kind of the score that I kind of wanted to kind of do. So I thought, there's no sort of way that we can't necessarily still have like a couple of acoustic singers. And even better, some singers that'll just like sing into backing music that's playing on a laptop type thing. So that was kind of like the main thing. So I kind of thought, yes, I can definitely scale it down a bit. But I sort of also thought at the same time, like, I don't want to scale it down too much, because then it kind of ruins what it is. So I just sat there and thought like more about like what can I actually manage, rather than like just thinking of all these cool ideas and let's do this and let's do that. So my initial plan for the first event is just to have like a few acoustic acts in the afternoon, so maybe like 3 or 4 singers that will just take us into the early evening, 5-6 o'clock type thing, and have just like some singers doing some kind of like live songs and stuff like that, and just essentially like I say, sort of go on like with maybe like from 3 till sort of like maybe like 5 o'clock, and just kind of have some nice chilled vibes, some singers singing some covers, doing some originals and stuff like that. Just some really nice like outdoor afternoon music, people having some like drinks in the sun and just enjoying the vibe. And then literally we bring the DJs on, and I'm going to DJ a 2-hour set in the evening, potentially, just playing like a clubland set sort of outside, and just kind of like really going for it with like loads of sing-alongs and stuff like that. And then my initial plan is to have another DJ come on after me, that will like continue a little bit of the vibe that I have now. The reason why I put myself down for a 2-hour set is I do want to play a good set at this event as well. You know, I do want to play a really good outdoor set. But at the same time, the reason why I didn't do like a 3-4 hour set was just literally because I am running the thing as well. And then we're going to have an after party as well. So my initial plan for the after party is to like move my DJ decks inside and like continue the sort of party in there. And basically I essentially like want to make sure that I'm like prepared and that, like, because I'm running things as well. So essentially what my initial plan is I'm going to go on into the DJ set, and then after the DJ set, the other DJ is going to come on, and then I'm just going to kind of have a little bit of a chill time. Maybe do a little bit of hosting on the mic for him, depending how I feel. But you know, definitely like, you know, I'll get a drink and then I'll like literally, you know, be able to like just sit down and chill out. I think like a lot of my cousins and stuff are gonna come as well, so like I'll just sit and like have a chat with them, and you know, how do you think the day's gone? Get a bit of maybe like feedback from people and just be like, have you enjoyed today? Hopefully, you know, you've all enjoyed it, and you know, and then when when the other DJ comes off, basically, which he's coming from out of Drift, you know, he's a friend of mine. So he's going to like actually, you know, play a set like I am. We're going to move my decks inside the book, and then we're going to move my decks inside. And hopefully when we do that, DJ Alex, who plays sort of at the book with me as well, is going to do his DJ set, which he's kind of like a laptop DJ. So he's going to play like the Spotify music, hopefully, and he's going to like just come on and kind of like, my initial thought plan is he's going to wind it down a little bit. So like we're going to have the live music, I'm going to come in with like the energetic sort of like Clubland sort of like club sort of bouncy set with all the like really good sing-alongs and like loads of really good cheese and stuff that will hopefully like get people up and dancing and singing. And then like my friend who's coming to DJ is hopefully going to keep a little bit of that energy and go into like again another kind of like cheesy sort of set. And then Alex will kind of come in and kind of do what he does, and he'll hopefully like play some just like chilled out music that will just kind of like really keep the vibe going. And also like I'm thinking he might play some music like earlier in the day as well, just some like background music sort of as you know, we're sort of like switching between acts. You know, so like one acoustic singer comes off and the next one comes on, you know, we'll just kind of like say like, well, look, you know, we're going to get the next act on in about 5 minutes. You know, make some noise for so and so. We'll get the next act on in about 5 minutes, and then just essentially, you know, I can kind of like get them up on stage, get them sound checked very briefly, while Alex is just kind of like playing some music. You know, just playing some like Spotify songs, just some like 80s, sort of like 90s, just, you know, very chilled out, just background music, while we're just kind of like getting the guitar kind of like plugged in. You know, if there's like, you know, a couple of acoustic guitar singers, the level is going to be like very much pretty similar. So it might just be a case of, look, you know, plug your lead in, make a note of sort of roughly where that level's going to be. You know, so like, you know, that'll kind of be like my initial thought plan is, you know, make a note of like where like the first acoustic guitar sounded good, and then like we can kind of, you know, stick to that sort of similar sort of vibe for kind of like, you know, what the next acoustic guitarist will do. You know, if they're gonna kind of in a way be doing some like similar stuff. So, what are you doing for St. Patrick's Day? Sorry. I struggle to see comments because the text is very small. I'm just working, to be honest with you, mate. I'm literally just working. So yeah, sorry. I'm not really doing anything for it, especially other than like being at work, you know. I'm from the UK, you know, and I work literally. So that's initially the plan. So what's the next move then? I've kind of told you like everything that's in the pipeline, everything that's in the plan, and everything that's kind of like, you know, what I want to happen. So what has happened already? So we've spoke, obviously, like I've confirmed that they're happy to do it. You know, the venue's happy, Tracy is happy for it to go ahead. I've obviously confirmed that we can get power out there. I just need to have a look at like exactly how we're using power out there. You know, will I need to bring like, you know, some big heavy duty extension leads, which I would say I probably will. You know, we're going to be plugging a fair few different things in, and in all honesty, like I'm not a big fan of like, you know, going from like trailing sockets to trailing sockets. So if I can find like something quite big and heavy duty that just has like, you know, a good few plugs on it, then we might be winning, as there'll be like a PA system, there'll be a mic mixer, there'll be DJ decks, so that's already 3 plugs. And usually like small extension leads, they have around about 4 plugs on them, so some do only have 3 on them. So I can get sort of some that's quite big, heavy duty, one that has a long lead on it. I'm quite sort of I don't mind having one that kind of like them ones where you kind of like roll the wire out. You see them a lot on like building sites. I'm quite happy to have one of them that we can just use for like extra wire length, and then like having a smaller extension lead sort of near like inside the gazebo type thing. But you know, I reckon like we're gonna need probably about 4. I think the minimum that we're gonna definitely use is probably about 5 plugs. I would essentially say we're probably gonna use about 5 plugs. That's just kind of like a minimum of what I think we'll end up using. It could be more. I'm just thinking there's a sound system, there's my decks, there's a mic mixer. Depending what we do for microphones, I'm thinking that I'm going to just get some wired microphones, because if you go with wireless, you've got a receiver, that's another plug socket, whereas if you get the wired mics, you can just put them straight into the mixer. Just have like 2 microphones, that's all we'll really need. 2 mics, a mic stand, 2 wires going into the mic mixer, you know, obviously like with cable management, and then basically that'll just literally be about it. You know, 2 microphones, nice and simple, 2 mic stands, and yeah, that will just literally be like what we'll use. But so that will like sort of eliminate a plug right there. Decks is only 1 plug. The PA system should, in sense, it should only be 1 plug. But I think sometimes you can get them where there is like a plug for each speaker. But like the PA system I've got behind me, like the PA speakers, you have 1 plug for the main speaker, and then you just have like a wire that goes from one speaker to the other, and it just brings sound to the other speaker, and without having to use like, you know, another plug. So that just depends on the system. But when you think about like, you know, the decks, the sound system, and then the mic mixer, like that is already 3 plugs. And then, you know, if like there's anything else that anybody like, you know, desires to bring, I don't know, like some acts might even bring like an effects pedal board or something. I'm not sure. We'll have to see. So I think, you know, like 5 plugs is like, I would say like 5 plugs is like scratching the surface of being on the safe side. I'd say like having like 7 or 8 plug sockets available to be able to plug into, I think that is like the safest option. Like, I would rather have a couple of like blank sort of like plug sockets that are not getting used, rather than like not having enough and then like thinking, shit, like, it's a bank holiday Sunday, like, are we going to get to a shop to buy a lead? So that was pretty much like, that was pretty much like the score of like, everything. So the next plan, the move, like what we do next. So at the weekend, I'm going to go and have a look at the beer garden itself. I've been in there before. I went a couple of years ago. Sadly, wake of a family member's funeral. We just had a couple of drinks out the back there, sort of after the funeral. And then before that, I hadn't really been in that beer garden for a lot of years. I went in there once when I was a kid. I think it was owned by somebody else then. And they had a little like climbing frame and like slide and stuff, almost like a little play park. Very, very small play park, like near the back that I don't believe they have now. So, there is like, literally that. And then literally, yeah, just like, go and check out the area, get some pictures of the area, have a little bit of a plan of like, where are we actually going to put stuff? Are we going to have to like move some tables around? Are we going to have to like, how is it going to work in terms of how is it going to look on the visual side of things, which is like my next move, to go there and check it out, and stuff like that. And yeah, it's going to be absolutely fantastic if we can pull this off and we can make it work. Now, in terms of like how I like, well, I suppose like back onto like the next plans, I guess. So like take photos, get the date locked in after that. My initial plan is I want the bank holiday weekend in August on the bank holiday Sunday. That is the vibe that I want. I want to tackle it early because like other pubs that are maybe just having like a daytime disco or they're putting something else on, isn't necessarily going to be advertising that just yet, whereas what we're doing is going to take a little bit more advertising and a little bit more planning. So I want it to, I want to sort of like get on the promotion like as early as possible, to not just like to promote it, but just to make people aware quite early on that this is going to happen. And then we can keep promoting it and reminding people that it's going to happen. So that is the next plan. That is kind of like my plan going forward, like to get the pictures, have a look at the actual size, measure up like and maybe like draw out some plans of where things are actually kind of going to go, and then essentially, cutting the long story short, nail the promotion, start confirming exactly who's going to play, start confirming the lineup so we can kind of put it together, and then literally like after that we can just kind of like literally start like going ahead with it. And really like this is actually happening now. This is what's going to happen. This is who's playing. This is the timings, and this is going to be like absolutely fantastic. So and I've got to confirm the time like of the overall event as well. My initial plan is I want it to start at something like 3 in the afternoon, and then I kind of want it to go to like 10 o'clock at night. I've just got to confirm like if we can like go like as late as 10 at night. Now I know legally you can go up to 11 o'clock at night to have music outside, but some venues like they obviously like to play it safe. They might say 9 o'clock is like the whole sort of like option of like, look, you need to sort of finish it up by 9 o'clock. Hopefully they don't say something like 8 o'clock, and then that would like, if they say 8 o'clock, then I would probably, in all honesty, I would probably just start the event a couple of hours earlier. So rather than starting at 3, I'd maybe start at 1 o'clock instead. And then that would, like, you know, we've still got time to like fit bits and bobs in, you know, without having to scale it down too much to the point where it ruins what it is. You know, I'd hate to kind of like only be able to put like 2 acoustic acts on when, you know, like I would like to essentially maybe put like 3 or 4 on. So that'll be all to kind of like plan. And then in terms of like how well do I actually see the event doing, I'm a little bit unsure, but I'm very optimistic, and I'm hopeful that it is actually going to do well. The reason why is because, for one, we're hitting a town, a small market town, where the reach isn't absolutely massive, but there's a community there. If it's advertised well enough, and people will see it as like something a little bit different, it will drag people to it. It will drag people to it, and it will hopefully like be something that will attract people. You know, people will come out and listen to like the live acoustic singers. And people will come out, you know, and have like a big bank holiday party, and they'll literally just like come and, you know, have like the most amazing time ever. And, you know, there'll be people that will hopefully stay out into the after party and stuff like that. And, you know, there'll be people that will like come and obviously like, you know, have an absolutely amazing time of it. So I'm very hopeful that it'll do well. The Facebook page that I've already made has already hit 133 followers. The posts themselves are not doing as good as like the amount of followers we've got. So I announced like what we wear. I said, like, you know, I did a post yesterday, like something new is coming to Driffield. You know, it, in all fairness, like, it has had like 5 likes, it's had 4 comments, it's had a couple of shares. So not overly bad for like a first page, you know, like brand new page, not being, you know, like not being seen before. Then I did like a thank you for, like, you know, thank you for 100, you know, 100 followers. That had 5 shares, which was quite good. I'm glad that people got in there and shared it, but getting likes and stuff like that was obviously something that I just kind of like, you know, thought kind of like, yeah, we could do to like hit some more likes. But I think once a little bit more, you know, like we've only just opened it up, so I think once there's more things getting posted on there, I think we will definitely be, you know, like getting a few more likes and stuff. So I'm not overly worried, but like, you know, I think by the fact that, like, you know, the post, people are sharing it, people are like following the page, so they are gonna, you know, whether they click a like or not, they are gonna kind of see what is happening in that sense. So that's good. So I'm very hopeful that I think the event will definitely do well. I think it's going to be one of those where, like, you know, we're either going to do well or we're either going to do really bad. I kind of think like whatever we do, like, it will be kind of like that, where we can take it back to the drawing board and we can be kind of like, well, look, this is the learning curve of kind of like how, you know, how this is going to kind of come together, you know, and how can we make it better if we do it again? Are we even like ever going to do it again? You know, it might end up, I mean, I hope this is like the worst case scenario, but I hope, like, you know, there isn't that thing of where like everything just ends up being like horrible. It just becomes the biggest headache ever, and I just literally say like, I'm never doing this again. I hope not, because you know, I'm very excited. This is like the birth of something for me, that is, you know, it's not aimed to be absolutely humongous. You know, we're not booking, you know, £25,000 DJs and putting them in like an arena with like tens of thousands of people attending. It always is going to be kind of like a unique, small, little outdoor sort of festival with that idea of like putting acoustic singers on. However, like there is scope to make it bigger in the sense that, you know, we can upgrade the stage size. We can start maybe thinking in the future, like, right, let's get a sound guy, let's actually put some bands on, you know, right, you know, this time let's add some food maybe, which, you know, I haven't decided yet if I am going to add food to this one, and what the score would be for that. You know, if somebody like, you know, would come with a food van, how much that would cost. It would be nice to like have some food out there, or get like a food van or like an ice cream van or something. You know, I'm thinking more food. I think people are drinking. People might just want like a burger. You know, like I think maybe just like some that would maybe do like some burgers and chips. Would be like a really cool thing. Now the thing is, I could like literally do this. That's the thing, but like because I've got so much other things to do as well, I can't then like commit myself to like being behind the grill. But I am qualified to do it. I have got like a food hygiene, 5-star food hygiene. I've done food hygiene courses. I do cooking at work currently. I run a breakfast club on my own every Wednesday morning. So I have got the capacity to do it. It's just obviously without, you know, like I am pretty much. I am, in sense, organising this mainly by myself, which is quite sort of like astonished, really, that I'm doing it. The other DJ that works at the book, like, he is kind of like running it with me. However, I think like his idea was very, very different to my idea. I think he just wanted to like put some music out there, and he just wanted to DJ out there and do some stuff when the weather was better. And then I kind of turned it into this like, let's just do this like whole thing. Whereas now I'm kind of properly like, I want to actually physically do this. So I am gonna like do my best to make sure that it's the best experience possible, and there is no such thing as we can't do this, because we can do it, and we are going to do it. This event is, you know, we're going to make this happen, unless there is a really unfortunate, like, you know, worst case, like the pub shut down. If it absolutely like pours it down with rain or something, then like again, that is going to be something that, you know, we maybe think about how do we kind of like redo this. Maybe like we can move it into the book and like just have a couple of singers on in the book and then kind of do like the same thing. But hopefully the weather should be like quite nice that weekend. If it's just coming a couple of showers, you know, the music side of things, like it is going to be indoors, like in the gazebo type thing. So that isn't a main worry for me. So anyway, with that being said, that is the plan. That is the idea. I'm really excited for it. I hope you are too. I babbled on a lot. I will do some other streams in the future where I will just kind of say what it is without explaining the full, you know, let's tell every single detail of how it became about. But it just sort of, again, the mad thing was like this idea all sort of circulated from me being in the beer garden at the book and thinking like, imagine if like we just put the decks out here and had some music on, like, you know, one afternoon, like just to see what it was like. And then Alex sort of saying, well, look, we've got the Tiger across the road, why don't we do something there? And then I just thought, yeah, that'd be sick. So with that being said, that is exactly what the score is, and that is exactly what we're going to be doing. So with that being said, make sure to like, comment, share, and we'll see you soon.